Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Saturday, January 4th. Before we get into today's play of the day, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a loss with the Boston Celtics minus 10.5, which was available on FanDuel at minus 110. Celtics overall, their offense struggled a bit without Kemba Walker. Their defense was pretty good for the most part. Trae Young, who missed the previous two games, was absolutely fantastic. He had over 20-something points. He was great, and he was able to lead the Hawks to a cover. Didn't really help from the Celtics that Jason Tatum yesterday, I believe, went it was either 2 for 15 or 2 for 17. He was awful from the floor, and that was just an issue down the stretch. But either or, we'll look to bounce back here, and it's a big day in sports. You already have a bowl game that's underway, but you have a lot of NBA games, and you also have the start of the NFL playoffs. And the one game that a lot of people want to talk about with regard to the NFL schedule is the late game between the Tennessee Titans and the New England Patriots. And the play of the day we're actually going to be looking at is a player prop, and we're going to be taking Derrick Henry over 88.5 rushing yards, which is available at minus 118 on FanDuel. Now, I know that the weather for this game is supposed to be I'd say more conducive to rushing attempts based on the fact that it's supposed to be roughly 37 degrees with the rain throughout the entire game. So you should see a decent amount of issues with regard to maybe traction on the field. I would expect to see both teams try to control the time possession and to run the ball, try to move the chains, and to try and just avoid throwing many deep passes downfield due to the weather conditions. And Derrick Henry, even though New England's defense has been very solid this season, the one weakness that they have shown signs for so far this season has been stopping the run. And Derrick Henry has been pretty much unstoppable for the last month or two. If you want to look at all the numbers since November 10th, I'm going to read off every single game that Henry's had in terms of rushing yards, and starting with November 10th against the Chiefs. 188 rushing yards, 159 rushing yards, 149 rushing yards, 103 rushing yards, 86 rushing yards, and 211 rushing yards. So his number here is at 88.5, and over the last month or so, he's averaging somewhere in the realm of probably around 140 to 150. He's been unstoppable, and I think that even if New England decides to crowd the box, I'm not really sure how much of an impact it's actually going to have, because of the fact that teams have already crowded the box on Tennessee all season long, and Henry still finished the season with the most rushing yards in the entire league with over 1,500. He simply can't be stopped. Tennessee knows that deep down, even though Tannehill's been really good, the only way this team is actually going to win is if Henry gets going, especially against New England, because they're going to need to try to keep Brady off of the field. I think Henry should see at least 20 to 25 touches in this game. The only way that I see this not working out is if New England blows the game open, but at the same point, based on how New England has played offensively so far this season, and based on how the line movement has gone from Tennessee +5 to roughly +4, people are expecting this game to be really close. People think that New England's empire is somewhat ending, and I think that Tennessee is built to keep this game extremely close due to the fact that Mike Vrabel has set up a very similar system to Belichick's. So I think you should see a more physical brand of football in the relatively cold weather at Foxborough. I think Henry should get at least 20 to 25 touches, and I just don't think New England will be able to stop him. Now, I know that you could say New England could just try to focus on taking Henry out of the game. I don't really think that's going to happen, just based on the fact that it's almost impossible to do, because Tennessee's offensive line is definitely above average. I think what they'll try to look to do is they'll try to limit or try to take out A.J. Brown out of the game, especially with Gilmore. They'll try to limit Tannehill in the passing game, who has struggled dramatically in his career against New England. And I think that you should see Henry get to at least 100 yards in this game. So in my opinion, whether or not Tennessee wins the game or not, I think it's a toss-up, but I definitely think that there's a better chance of Henry having a big game regardless of how the game ends up finishing with regard to the outcome. But for me, the play of the day, once again, will be on Derrick Henry over 88.5 rushing yards, and that line is available on FanDuel at minus 118. Other than that, though, talking about some of the leans on today's card, we'll start out with the early game in the NFL between Buffalo and Houston. I'm going to take Buffalo here on the money line here. I personally think that Houston, despite being as dynamic as they can be offensively, their defense is pretty suspect, and I know J.J. Watt is coming back, but I have to question how effective he will be in his first game in several months. Buffalo is a very physical football team, and Houston, their defense tends to bend, and I'm a little bit concerned with Buffalo's ability to control the time possession. I think Buffalo should be able to move the chains frequently with Singletary and even Allen's ability to run the ball. out of the quarterback position. Plus, Buffalo's defense is easily a top 3 unit in all of football if you've looked at the stats. And Watson, even though he's been very solid in his career, he has had some issues with turnovers at times this season, which showed against Tampa Bay towards the latter half of the season in his last game in Week 16. I think Buffalo should play well. I also question if Houston's offense will look a bit flat, since pretty much all the starters did not play last week against Tennessee. Buffalo, even though they benched a decent amount of their starters, Allen and people did play, I believe it was a quarter against the Jets, so I don't know how much rust will play a factor in that one. But for me, Houston has the reputation of always getting a home playoff game in wildcard weekend and then losing, and I don't think this year is going to be any different. I think Buffalo will finally win the first playoff game, and it's been a long time. But I'll lean to Buffalo there. I just think they're a better overall team. So I'll lean to the Bills on that one. I'll also lean to the under in that game at 43.5. I think if Buffalo wants to win this game, they got to keep Watson off the field. And I think Buffalo's defense should do a pretty good job of getting after Watson. This game should be low scoring, because Buffalo's offense isn't very isn't really that dynamic. They mostly just move the chains, don't really have many big plays. I think this game should be very close. I think it'll be low scoring. I think Buffalo should win somewhere in the realm of 20-17, give or take. So lean to Buffalo and the under on that one. And for the New England and Tennessee game, I'm actually going to lean to the under. I already mentioned my thoughts on the game itself. I'm going to lean to Tennessee and I'll lean to the under. I think New England's going to win, but I think this game will be close. I think New England will win somewhere in the realm of 23-20. I think this game's going to be very close throughout. Tennessee's is built to not get blown out, and I think they should be able to keep this game within the number, especially with how New England has struggled offensively so far this season. And at the same point, I know that money's come in on the over from 42 to 45.5 or so. Most of that was because of fear that there was going to be some snow, but still with the rain and with New England's offense, I just think both teams will try to control the clock, and I think this game should finish pretty low scoring, so lean to the under in both games, and I will lean to the underdogs as well with the point spread in both of the NFL games. I'm talking about the NBA card here. Looking at the games here, what do I like? I'm going to lean to Utah minus 4.5 against Orlando. Utah people haven't been talking about because they're not really the most entertaining team to watch. They've been rolling lately. Orlando had to play last night. They ended up beating the Heat. Impressive win by them, but they're still playing the second end of a back-to-back, and Utah is coming into this game off a day off. I think Utah should be able to get the job done. I think Gobert will play well. I don't think Orlando has anybody to guard Mitchell after Isaac got injured, and I think Utah should win this game by at least 6 points. Lean to the Jazz on that one. And other than that, what else do I like? Sorry, just looking through the card. I'm also going to lean to the over 216.5 between Charlotte and Dallas. Dallas without Porzingis on the court still was very solid offensively, but they also played at a pretty fast pace. If you watch the game against the Nets, Doncic at the point guard pretty much took over everything. He had 30-something points, he had 13 rebounds, 6 assists. But with Porzingis not in the lineup as a rim protector, I question Dallas' defense in the paint. Charlotte also likes to play relatively up-tempo. Graham's been very solid this season. And P.J. Washington's a decent big man, but they don't really have any real reason to go into the half court. I think both teams will turn this into a more transition-based game. And I think both teams have a shot at getting to potentially 110 points. So for me, I'm going to lean to Dallas. I think Dallas should score at least 120 in this game, but I'll lean to the over 216.5. Money's already come in on the over. I think that line will continue to climb. But the play today, once again, will be on Derrick Henry over 88.5 rushing yards, which is available on FanDuel at minus 118. Also worth mentioning, for my predictions with regard to the NFL playoffs, I'll just tell you right now, I think the Saints are going to win the championship. I've mentioned in the past how I loved Baltimore and how I did, but Baltimore's the popular pick according to everybody, and I think the Saints are definitely somehow still a sleeper. I'm not really sure how that's a thing. For me, I think there's value on the Saints to win the Super Bowl or championship, however you want to phrase it, at plus 600, and for me, I'll probably put a sprinkle on that as well. That's just my thoughts on the playoffs. Hopefully all of you have a profitable Saturday, and good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.